So the clinical symptoms of PTSD are characterized by reoccurrence of the traumatic event, reliving the event, having them about the event, and emotional distress. So there are some people you see when they return from deployment, they put themselves in the alcohol, or they're doing things that not ready themselves because they're trying to get rid of that thought process. Some folks, not like they were actually involved in the combat, but because they see a dead body, or they see somebody got wounded, or they see someone got injured, so they relive that moment. They go to bed at night and they have dreams about it. So those are clinical symptoms. If things like that happening, if someone who going through stuff like that, they need to seek help immediately. One of the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder is emotional avoidance. This is when the person tries to avoid thinking about an event, they avoid talking about it, and they avoid places that remind them about the event. They also avoid activity that normally they used to like, but they don't enjoy anymore. So, for example, it would be maybe a guy was involved in an accident on a highway, and sometime driving on that highway, they'll get reminded of that accident. So that's how some folks will try to avoid, when it's emotional avoidance, they try to avoid the situation, they try to avoid reliving that moment. But there's nothing wrong with, when it happens, there's nothing wrong with you, talking about it. There's nothing wrong with you talking about what had happened. There's nothing wrong with, you experiencing or going to the area that this stuff happening. So people try to avoid. Another symptoms that when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder is emotional disturbance. This is when the person starts having negative talk. There are some people who will say, "Oh, it was my fault this happened." Most often you see this when it comes to sexual assault or rape. The person trying to blame themselves. Maybe if I wasn't in that area, this wasn't going to happen to me. So, and then they try to avoid things that remind them of the situation. Like they feel less interested in activity that they used to do, or they feel detached from family, close relatives, and friends. So you may ask them, "Oh, what's going on?" And they'll be like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it," because they're trying to get away, that emotional disturbance. They're trying to just forget about it. And then another area is that very interesting when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder is things that happen after we experience post-traumatic stress. So there are 5 main points that is brought and physically talk about, which is safety. So doubting the ability to protect themselves. So some people will feel like, "Oh man, I couldn't protect myself, or I couldn't not just myself." That just, since we in the military, they just take for a convoy, for example. You might be like, "Man, if you were driving that convoy, you might be like, man, if I wasn't going to turn that way, I wasn't going to land on that landmine, I couldn't even protect myself." I hate to say it, but if somebody, close friends, were in that convoy and the person passed, said, "I couldn't even protect my friend." So the mindset of safety, they down to say that you can't protect yourself, you can't do anything to help others or either help yourself. Another thing they will talk about is trust, lacking the trust of yourself and others. You see, for this one, you see most, especially like in assault cases or just a rape. There are people who were molested when they were a child, and when they grew up, they don't trust anyone because they don't want to relive that moment. They don't want to relive things of that nature. Another thing is power and control. They lose power and control. They feel hopeless, and they feel that they don't have control over their life after experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder. And finally, intimacy. So you see people with Post-traumatic stress disorder have problem with not just relationship, but they also have problem with close friends, relative, maintaining that relationship that used to be there. I haven't had that experience yet. I don't know someone who had been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, but from what I see on TV or on a movie, it's something that is very disturbing. I mean, if you don't seek help, it's something that's very disturbing. So most often we turn, we turn not to think about these stuff. We turn not to try to avoid it, and because we don't want to bring back memory. So the first scenario I was talking about, this is just a scenario, and from the beginning of the video when I asked what post-traumatic stress disorder was, the audience said, he gives an example and he mentioned Congo, and then he gives an example, he mentioned Congo. And it just happened that this scenario kind of similar to what you guys explained. So,
did you want me to read it?
Yeah, you can read it, please.
Okay. All right, scenario. Joe returned from deployment. Joe recently returned to his hometown from serving in Operation Iraqi Freedom. Since he returned, he avoids crowded places like the baseball fields, grocery stores, and feels uncomfortable when at his son's soccer game. Things like taking his kids to the park does not seem fun for him anymore. Joe used to enjoy watching fireworks with his wife and kids during 4th of July. On the 4th of July night, while watching fireworks, Joe grabbed his 2-year-old and ran while screaming, "Incoming!" At home, Joe seems to have short fuse these days. Sometimes Joe is easily startled and seems emotional and numb. At night, Joe had problems sleeping because of nightmares and flashbacks. When his wife asked if he was okay, he doesn't want to talk about things that have happened when he was deployed because he feels guilty.
So, you see, when I asked what post-traumatic stress disorder was, he gave similar scenario. We didn't discuss this,
right,
but these are things that happen. Now, after reading the scenario, what are some symptoms that we have discussed that can be identified in this scenario?
Symptoms is he's avoiding emotional avoidance.
Emotional avoidance. So he's emotionally avoiding because when he talks to his wife and his wife asks him what's going on, he said, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it. I think there's things that goes on." That's a good example. What are some symptoms, other symptoms that we talk about that he can identify in this scenario?
I don't think it will be emotional disturbance. I'm trying to write that stuff down, but
I can see emotional disturbance. You think so? The reason why I think maybe like an emotional disturbance, I could see like him, or kind of like avoiding, like, he doesn't want to talk and kind of seek help because he's just conflicted about wanting to open up to his family. So I can kind of see.
And you can see that, what's about area in his life that you think might be affected? We talk about trust, we talk about safety, we
Power
talk about
and control.
Power control, definitely.
Yeah, power control.
Probably
Trust.
safety as well.
safety, yeah. Because he used to go to some baseball game, to a crowded place, but he don't trust people anymore. He think maybe he's reliving the moment. Maybe he was in a crowded place and I hate to say a bomb go off, and so he always think that, oh, I'm in this era, bomb going to go off. I don't know how old were you guys doing 9/11.
I was just great.
I was first.
But did you ever get that?
No, it was something shocking because when I was in 6th grade, I was in math class. The teacher said, "Stop what you're doing and turn what was going on the radio." And I was like, "Oh, that seems to be pretty big." But when I got home, my mom was like, she was still watching the news because she was from New Jersey and she'd been to the towers.
So for me, I had graduated from high school. I was in Africa, and the moment I came into the U.S. 2001, actually 2002, right after 9/11. And the truth is, the moment I got on the plane, the first thing that came to my mind was, it started happening for 9/11. It's not only that moment, but sometimes when I travel, I just think about it.
Right.
There's terrorists on this flight.
I think about that.
After 9/11. So those are things that people think about. You think about safety stuff, you're like, man, no, this is on my mind. Am I safe? And let's be real, if you was older, if you're gonna see someone who look like the people who did the bombing, guess what you do?
Associate.
Yeah, you'd be like, oh my
Similar.
God. Yeah, so then we'll have that mindset. So in this case, Joe returned from Operation Iraqi Freedom, and since then he's been avoiding crowded places. So we don't know what happened to Joe when he was there. And what was the reason why he avoided crowded places? Because Joe don't say he was the one to talk about it to his wife. Joe said he feel good. Things like
Isolating himself.
yeah, he isolating himself. So those are things that happen to people when you're going through traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder. So like firework, when Alton, you mentioned something about firework, like the scenario, not scenario, but the story you gave about your friend who the 4th of July, he doesn't want to be around firework. But firework, well not firework, but firework sound like a gunshot. So if you hear firework, you probably reminded of the time you're in the bottle or the time you're experiencing whatever event that you're experiencing. So the firework, the 4th of July firework is something that Joe used to enjoy watching with his wife, but now he doesn't enjoy it anymore. So, and there's a lot of things that we can take from this little scenario. However, it's not only about post-traumatic stress disorder. It's what can we do to help these people when they going through post-traumatic stress disorder. So one of the process that is used to treat post-traumatic stress disorder is something called cognitive processing therapy. So cognitive processing therapy, what is cognitive processing therapy? It's a form of cognitive behavior therapy that is found to be effective in treating post-traumatic stress disorder. And this is something that people from the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs and the National Center for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder have found to be very useful. And we'll go through the reason why they found it to be very useful. So CPT is also focused on teaching clients the skill needed to overcome the negative thoughts and emotions associated with PTSD. So when we talk about symptoms of PTSD, most often people only look at the negative portion. We think about the negative things that happen, like, oh man, when let's say, like if we say for hurricane, let's look at Hurricane Katrina. When it came through, swept the entire area. So those folks who are over there, probably when they hear a wind blowing or they hear that the hurricane, they probably get stressed out and go through all the different stuff.
Yeah.
So what cognitive processing therapy does is that they help these folks to change their mindset, to change their thought process from being the negative one, looking at the negative process, to making it into a positive. So most people who suffer post-traumatic stress disorder tend to get stuck in that moment when that stuff happens. They get stuck in that moment. So how can we help them get out of that moment?
I was going to ask that.
No, go ahead.
Like how can, because something that happened like that, I mean, you lost everything that you bought and owned at that time. How do you, because your mind is very powerful.
Oh, yes, the mind definitely is powerful.
How do you change something that's so powerful like that to start thinking that that's not going to happen again or something like that?
It's not like you're going to trick your mind saying that's not going to happen again.
But prepare.
And
You just kind of prepare.
Prepare yourself. Not only prepare yourself, because people tend to live in the past instead of living in the past. So
yes.
Instead of having the mindset of, man, when this wind comes, it's going to blow my house away. Or me get in this car because I was involved in an accident. If I get in this car, I'm going to, something going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm going to get into an accident. So there's the way in which cognitive processing therapy works is you train or teach or educate the client, the person who's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, to use that negative energy and turn it into positive energy.
Okay.
So most often, like I'm a guy who I'm optimistic. I see the glass half full. Some people see the glass half empty. So if you're optimistic in the sense that, oh, let's look at it this way. You lost your home. Guess what? There are other people who lost their life.
Yeah.
So you see that different?
Okay.
So you lost your home, but there are people who lost your life. What you can do is to build yourself up, to educate other people who experience stuff like that. So we can, in that way, you can help people. If a guy who from battlefield, living in there, man, and having all the negative talk, saying, "Oh, it was my fault. He got blown up. It wasn't." You let them know, no, it's not your fault. It's happened. This is part of war. When you're in war, you have conscience.
Yes.
You have conscience. What can you do with your life now to make things better? Some people will say, "Oh, I'm going to raise funds for Joe Brown. I'm going to, create a memory for Joe."
Right.
Yeah.
See? So this way we can talk to these clients or those folks that we help them rethink the way they see the event. So why is this so important? Why make a CBT useful for treating PTSD? Most people who are exposed to a traumatic event often blame themselves or run away. So according to ladies and the reporting, not everyone who are exposed to post-traumatic stress disorder experience symptoms. People deal with stuff differently.
Yeah.
There are some people who are already resilient to certain situations. So if you are resilient to certain situation, meaning if you already know how to go through struggle, one of the reasons in the military people stress on exercise, because the more you exercise, the more you exercise your mind. So the more you exercise, the more you exercise your mind. So if you come to places like where we are now, I'm not going to call the name, but places the way we are now, while other folks are getting stressed out, you're not stressed out, you're already built for it.
Right.
So if you experience something negative, you're not going to just look at the negative side of the event, but you're also going to look at, okay, it happened, or let's look at it the good side. So there are some people who will go through, there are some folks who will go through that negative emotion, who have that negative experience. So the way CPT works, it helps client repair the damage caused by the traumatic event. So it's all about the mindset. It helps the client, all the damage, the negative thing they're thinking about, it helps them to repair that damage in a sense that you encouraging the person, you telling the person that, look, let's look at the good side. Don't always think about the bad side. Look at this side and don't always think about the bad side. So this is when the therapy offer or teaches a special skill that will help the patient regain healthy perspective of the event. Now, here are couples of example of negative thought associated with PTSD. So, Archie, you can read the first block.
Okay. Mary was sexually assaulted by her uncle at an early age, and Mary blames herself for the assault because she did not do much to defend herself. She takes on kickboxing and other defense courses. She believes that all men are animal and that the world is unsafe because of men.
So, because of Miriam's experience with her uncle, so she doesn't see the war like a safe place anymore. It's not just the war, but guess what? Men.
Yep.
And all men are animals. So what can we do, or what can we say to Mary to change her mindset?
For that, it's a little bit hard, just because of the fact that I can see different things like sexual assault from a stranger than like by family, because family is like, someone you trust.
That you're supposed to trust.
So, that you're supposed to.
But if you look at the statistic, most sexual assault don't happen with family. It doesn't happen with strangers.
Yeah.
So,
at that time and place, I think the best thing for her is to kind of just ease her, not, so she's comfortable, again, to show that there are better people in the world, and not really just to work on getting her trust, but work to just being, just there for her first, rather than trying to be too much. I think, just to show her that there's still good people in the world, like just still being kind to her.
Most definitely. See, there you go. You're a counselor already. Okay. But yeah, that's a good response. It's, people, the way people look at things is different. You will see it differently. The other person will see it differently. Mary, on the other hand, it's not just her uncle. Yeah, she said, you know what? All men are not the animal.
Yeah.
So she doesn't see the world as a safe place. So as a therapist, using cognitive processing therapy, changing Mary's mindset. Like, look, no, you don't have to trust all men, but there are some good people.
Good people in general.
Yeah, they're good people. So, Donnie, you want to take this second
Yeah.
one?
John blamed himself for his friend's death because he was the driver of a vehicle that killed his friend. He has dreams and nightmares about the vehicle accident.
So, yes, John, he blamed himself because, the scenario does not go further, but let's just assume John was driving in front of the front seat, but wasn't wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah.
You can see that, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Accident happened, your friend passed it. John blamed himself. Oh, it was my fault because I was driving. But John, do you really think it's your fault? Sometimes people blame themselves, but it's not really their fault. So you make John understand, look, it's not your fault. Your friend, I don't hate to say it, but
I don't know if he was
wearing a seatbelt or not.
What
What would happen? So there are a lot of scenarios we can play around when it comes to post-traumatic stress disorder, and the way in which we can help people change the mindset. So the last one is kind of similar to the scenario one, which is Joe returned from Operation Iraqi Freedom or Endurance Freedom, but he's always angry, he's always irritated, and because Joe witnessed somebody who was innocent got killed, so he always upset about that. But as a therapist, using cognitive processing therapy, we can make Joe to understand, like I said earlier, doing war, they are conscious. You cannot blame yourself. Things happen. You cannot carry on. But what can you do to make life better after that? That's what matters. Now, how does cognitive processing therapy work? It works by focusing on psychoeducation, meaning you using different tools or information, giving the client different information that can help better them. So you teach the client skills, offer specific cognitive research skills, which is like adaptive thought, which will help them read things the way they think, if they get into outbursts or negative emotion. So after covering the three learning outcomes, we have a little exercise, and we can just say instead of writing. After we analyze Joe's scenario, we already discussed about Joe's scenario. So can you give one example of negative emotion? Anyone can give one example of negative emotion associated with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Not doing what you enjoy.
Not doing what you enjoy.
Yeah.
That's good.
Not wanting to talk about what happened.
Not wanting to talk about what happened. So not doing what you enjoy as I don't want this used to be something I enjoy, but I don't want to do anymore. Now waiting to talk about things that happen. So those are all negative emotion. Now for the third one, it's a formula one way you can help modify those negative emotions. Not doing what you enjoy. How can you help someone to modify that to make them like doing what they used to enjoy?
Try to convince, maybe do it with them.
Do it with them. That's a good thing. Do it with them. Okay.
So say necessarily if I used to taking long walks in the park, but I haven't did it, I almost say to myself, get a reason hey man, let's get out. It's a beautiful day. Let's go walk. and, convince him and maybe going with somebody who maybe he would be more likely to do it.
Yeah. And while you got some more, you always also talk that you're talking about it, it will help ease their mind, or it will help ease things that is involved. And
also, like, introduce them slowly. Like, you probably want to go to big baseball games.
yeah.
But like having to go to like little kids game without that many people.
Yeah. Gradual it's a gradual process, a gradual stream. And by the way, the cognitive processing therapy is a short-term treatment program which lasts like 12 weeks. But some treatment program lasts like a year. And it's helpful in the sense that not too much of resources you can put behind it, because you can go to a therapist and they will give you brochures and read on this, read on that. They refer you to things that you can do that will help yourself. It's like a 12-week program. So, well, I think we covered everything, and I want to thank you guys. Any questions?
Not really. Well, yeah. So, pretty much dealing with this. What would you say would be the best? Because I know we gave also solutions for like at least somebody from war. I mean, I don't know as many people with traumatic experiences, at least that told me, besides ones that are in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And out of the suggestions you gave, like, what would you guarantee, or how do you think is the best way to kind of deal with it?
To deal with what?
Or helping somebody out that has PTSD.
There's a lot of treatment program that can be used, not just cognitive processing therapy. There's some people who use, there's something called prolonged exposure. So, for example, like you talk about your friend who lived in the neighborhood, you went to bottom, they set up video game, kind of like a video game, they set it up in front of them to see
how they react to
it. Over and over.
Gotcha.
So prolonged exposure. So they'll keep watching that what you call it, that if it was a bomb that exploded, they'll keep watching that. At first, they will be frightening, they will be jumpy, but eventually, guess what's going to happen? They're going to get nothing. They're going to realize that, yeah, it's not real. So, like hearing the firework, they'll probably be in the room and someone talks, it's not going to happen. Someone talks the firework.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So there's a lot of treatment program, but with cognitive processing therapy, it doesn't work for everyone.
Right.
It works only for people who have negative thought about themselves. Some people experience post-traumatic stress disorder, but they don't have a negative thought about themselves. You have to have that negative emotion, negative thought, that avoidance and all this stuff. Some folks, they will experience it. They won't be, they won't have any of these symptoms. But people who have these symptoms, you can use cognitive processing therapy.
Okay. So someone can have PTSD, but not have negative thoughts about it.
For instance, some folks
Like you won't notice, they won't notice
you don't
until
notice
something
until
happens.
it's happening.
Until it happens. Okay.
So some folks will have it, and the only time you notice, they'll be normal, they'll be doing things, but all of a sudden maybe someone just scream, and it'll be like a quick flash.
And they don't remember what would happen.
What happened? Yeah. Quick flash. So it depends on the symptoms.
Okay.
And the treatment plan. So what may work for you may not work for me.
Okay.
So it depends on the treatment plan. But from research, it says the cognitive processing therapy works for people with those symptoms of avoidance, symptoms of not just avoidance, but emotional disturbance. So it worked for them. I think you guys seen a movie where people come home from war and they're just drinking themselves to, drinking, not just drinking, but doing crazy stuff. Like a Marine once I saw on YouTube, he was so angry, just screaming at this guy who just caught in front of him.
Right.
He just got back from war. Maybe that reminded him of somebody or something. Yeah, you never know. So there's different treatment program that you can use to help people suffer post-traumatic stress disorder. Any questions?
I was just saying the reason why I asked is like, cause like even like somebody like let's say like to recommend people to help. It's easy to say and do it, but even like people like that do like drugs and stuff like that. Like it's easy to say you can get them to rehab, but be willing to go, and it's just like something maybe you could help somebody out and just like at least get them to the steps before it gets dangerous.
That's true. Yeah, and once if you can recognize the symptoms, because these folks sometimes those who suffer PTSD, it happened to them, but they're not recognizing it, they're not acknowledging it.
Right.
They say, "Oh, I'm fine," I'm fine.
Yeah.
Why do you think stuff happened to me? They would say, "I'm fine." But when you recognize it, there's a way you can actually get them to go with you,
right.
or find help for them.
They gotta trust you for it.
Yeah, they gotta trust you. That trust and safety, and you don't want to be the guy who will make a person
get them, and then they feel like you just
go away.
push them, and then now we're back to square one.
Yeah. So, but good stuff. Thanks, gentlemen.
No problem.
Appreciate it.